Alright, in this video I wanted to talk about this limited time shop item in the spring season shop here. There should be a painting, I think. If you have an old painting, you'll always have access. But like I said, there's a painting here. But they added this new weapon called the Wildgrace. It's a charge weapon with 3 different options. I guess 4 if you don't choose an option, you have a 4th option. The art kind of looks stupid. It's just a branch with flowers. I don't know who would actually use something like that as an actual weapon. But the weapon basically toggles between MRMs. And when it first came out, I didn't grab it. I thought, well, I didn't see anything particularly special about it. But I decided that it did actually have a feature that I thought was worthwhile to use with Underworld Archfiend. But what I'm going to do here is kind of show off the different options. You can charge, I think you have to be within like 15 levels or something of the monster, and you can actually gain 80 charges. And then it adds to the potency of these things. Wild Savagery is Prismatic Burn. Let me show that off real quick. So 1.362 if you land the, I think it's going to be up to 4 hits. I can't remember if it's per hit or if it's like hits versus misses or whatever. But then you go again here. It's for 1 round, and then 1 round, and then 1 round, and so on and so forth. So now we show 0 rounds. I don't particularly like Prismatic Burn. And the reason why is on average, there's an assumption that the monster's worst resistance is going to be 130%. But Prismatic Burn only gets 121% damage boost. And then it actually hits all 8 elements and then rolls into a single average or whatever. Or it doesn't really average, but it rolls into like an additive stack. And so it's not really that great unless you find monsters with really high, like this is probably closer to an average resistance. So you'll be better off doing an energy burn here, and almost identical doing a fire or light burn than doing Prismatic Burn. Now if you get lucky and hit some of the, like the fire, energy, and light over, so let's say 3 turns, yeah, it'll do more. But what if you hit water, for example? But you can do charges to actually add to the power. So let's see what we do here. I like to do Arcane Amp to give myself some more potency. The big reason why I use it, even though it does have other benefits, pet and guest accuracy, more damage, stuff like that. Alright, so we have 86 charges. It's going to use up to 48. Let's see what happens with the... So it didn't actually take Prismatic Burn for some reason. Let's see, 89 charges. I must have... okay, I took it off by re-clicking. D3 here. Also, this mode right here seeks between earth and wind. So as an... you can use it as a compression weapon. Let's see, 44 charges, let's see. Alright, let's try and see what the burn will be this time. So 2.725, so it's like basically double if you use your charges. I guess that's not too bad. The other mode here, Nature's Grace, basically does regen. So let's see, this is going to max. The most charges it'll use in a turn is 48, so this will cap out the charges. So I'm getting 0.18 regen for 2 turns. I think it adds turns. And then the Ellie shield is to versus Earth and Wind. So you can use it. So Earth and Wind are opposing elements. So in theory, should be pretty good. But I don't really use the weapon for either of these. The third mode is actually a bleed eat. For more damage. Out of all the DOTs, the bleed eater mode is easily the best one. Because bleed is always harm damage, so it assumes 90%, so 100% resistance, and then it gets a 10% penalty. So it's basically hitting as if it's 90% element. So like in this case, let's say this monster, if I was going to use a burn, the most optimal burn would be an ice burn. So if I was to inflict an ice burn for 5 rounds or however many rounds, and then I just turn right around and ate the ice burn for damage, I would also need to be able to eat the ice burn for probably ice damage in order to get the most optimal setup. So it's very elemental specific. Whereas with bleed, there are now like Lovestruck plate weapon will eat bleed, and it'll actually Ellie seek based on the weapon held, the element that's there. So that essentially allows you to alter. So when you eat a DOT, you're basically transferring power from the DOT, which is damage over time. You're basically moving that damage up to a cap, 200% for weapons attacks, and 400% for skills and spells. I mean, you're basically front loading that, and you're killing off some of the damage you will do over turns, and you're doing it all up front, and it's going to be on top of your normal attack. So essentially that's the purpose of eating a DOT. Excuse me. With bleed, you're actually altering the element in I think almost all the cases, if not all the cases. And so that's why not only are you getting the damage boost, you're altering the element. So I could inflict bleed, for example, versus this monster here, and then I could do an ice attack, and what would end up happening would be basically I'm changing something that would in theory be harm damage, and I'm changing it to whatever element I want. And one of the big reasons why I decided to pick this weapon up is basically this armor, and there's some other bleed inflicting ideas you can do as well. But I'm going to pick Natural Disaster, and it eats bleed for boosted damage. But what I'm going to do here, so also I'm going to have charges, which will add 45% more damage. So what I'm going to do here basically is, so if you remember, this armor has a built-in 4-hit spell for mages. I believe it's a weapon-based skill for non-mages. But what I'm going to do with it is do Chaotic Lucerda Staff, which will end up inflicting chromatic poison, which will be enough to be able to use voidforge, vanity, etc. But I'm going to use Wildgrace to eat the bleed, but I'm going to infuse with void. So now I'm basically altering. So the bleed that I have here, actually it did not take. There's no bleed here for some reason. It actually resisted. So what I'm going to do here is just show the void. So we've got 1,000, then a lucky strike for 2,700, then 1,400. And that's with a damage boost that was there. Let's see what we get here. Get blown up. Alright, so let's see what we can manage this time. But basically, the idea here is I'm going to inflict enough bleed in theory. Alright, so 1.836 bleed. Switch to Wildgrace. Eat the poison to imbue with void. And then use this guy to inflict, to eat the bleed, and then also do void damage. So it's basically altering a harm DOT, front loading yourself with void damage. And as you can see, it was basically right at around 2,000 per hit. So it's a quick and easy way to do 6k damage. I'll just do it one more time. I think this Underworld Archfiend armor is maybe my favorite item that's come out in quite a while. I just enjoy it a lot. Again, imbue with void. I don't guess the bleed took that time either. And one of the things about this weapon on that mode is at negative 15 BTH lean. So you get even further damage. That's why I missed all those hits. I have Optico out. I forgot to swap to this guy here. Should have enough left there. High blocking armor or monster. But that's pretty much it. I think that alone, any time you have a bleed inflictor, it's going to be worth the time, I think. We'll just do this one more time. And you should see some pretty good results here. Actually, this kind of shitty one there. Oh, I'm not even sure why that was so low that time. But at the end of the day, if you can inflict up to a 1 power bleed, I think that's the amount that it takes off. You're basically going to transfer a harm DOT to void right up front. And so I think just for that alone, the weapon is worth the tokens. That's it for this video.